All right, two different types of springs we're going to talk about, tension and torsion. Let's sift through these. All springs break, that's true. All right. So the first one we're going to talk about is a torsion spring. These springs twist as the door opens up. All right. Now, there's some companies such as Cloplay that sell more of a do-it-yourself spring system in there, and they're actually going to have a drill and a socket that you hook up to, and that spins the spring. All right. Other manufacturers are going to be having a piece like this here, where you actually stick a rod into it, raise it up, then another rod and raise that up, and you spin it by hand. All right. And then you have to hold it in place and tighten it. All right. So for us, we always want to know, is it the right size spring that's for the door? Is the spring in good shape? Is it worn out, and is it wound the proper amount of times? All right. So there's a few good general rules that we can go with. The Cloplay ones, the ones that they'll be off on the side and they'll have a bolt on there for a socket. You put it on there. They wind those springs about 10 to 12 times depending on the door. All right. These manufacturers, for these that do them by hand, 7 is going to be our magic number. So when this spring is at rest, this line that we see going on an angle in here, all right, those lines are actually going straight across the spring when it's not under any tension or torsion whatsoever. All right. Then what they do is they wind it up 7 times. So I should see 7 gaps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and maybe a little bit more. And that same thing for the other spring on the other side. If it's the right size spring, 7 wounds is our magic number. That's where we should be. And then we want to look at the spring first. If it's broken, we're not going to move the door. We're not going to test the opener. We're going to disclaim it, call it broken, and let somebody else certify it. All right. If it is intact, then we're going to go ahead and pull the chain. So we'll release the door from the door opener. That door should stay in the closed position as soon as I release it. All right. Then I should raise the door all the way up, and it should be able to stay in the up position as well. And then the final test would bring the door down, so the bottom of the door is in the middle of the doorway opening, and it should also stay there. As I start to open it, it should want to continue opening. As I start to close it, it should want to continue closing. All right. So the door should stay all the way at the bottom, in the middle, and all the way at the top. If the spring is in good shape, if it's the right size for the door, and it's wound properly. 7, and then open, close, and middle. Expansion springs, we can't do that test with, so they're going to stay either all the way closed or all the way open. We don't do the middle spring in there. But they also come in different sizes. And we're not always going to be able to know what size spring is going to be required by that door. So it should stay all the way open. It should stay all the way closed. These, when they're closed, they expand. All right. So these expansion springs stretch. So they're under a lot of pressure, and they do break. And when they do break, they're violent. They spring all over the place. So what we want to do is put a cable inside that spring. And that cable, that's where the spring is going to ride on or stay in there. This way, if the spring does break, then at least it's not going to be damaging a vehicle or, God forbid, hitting somebody in the head, should they be walking by that area. You just don't want that to happen. Show your client where the disengaged pull cord is. The newer garage door openers are just phenomenal. The one I bought was from Chamberlain. There's a battery that's constantly charged in this thing. So even when we lose power, we still have a battery that's going to be able to open up this door. So, but nonetheless, just in case all else fails and maybe the mechanics are broken, somebody should be able to realize how to disengage it from the opener, pulling that cord, and then they should be able to manually lift the door and get it up and out of there. All right. So keep it secured. Please be aggressive. Tracks, rollers, everything else. Don't just look for the super obvious. Look for all these joints. Make sure the nuts are in there. Don't be afraid to reach up in there and just see if those nuts are secured. It happens, you know. Now, obviously, the no-brainer stuff like that, you put a 2x4 in a nail, that's not going to cut the mustard. But nonetheless, everywhere, wheels, no dents, anything else. You know, if we see anything that's broken in there or loose, call for a contractor. Let them go ahead and say it's safe. You don't need to own this if it breaks. All right, and that's the biggest thing. Nobody ever believes, oh, they won't blame me. Bullshit. All right, you will be blamed for anything that goes wrong. Here's the bottom line. If that door falls and breaks, it can't be ignored. Somebody's going to have to fix it. Somebody's going to have to pay to get it fixed. All right? So the sellers aren't going to want to do it, and they're going to be looking at fingers to point to. You know, the buyers, they may not want to do it. You know, again, fingers are going to be looking to point to. Don't let it be you. That's all I'm saying. Document what you can, and don't let it be you. So anything that you see with doors, we're very aggressive with it. And just for the record, I'm aggressive with roofs, and I'm aggressive with foundations as well. All right, all those different areas, any sort of damage, I want to make sure I document as much as possible. Mostly because of that water coming into the house. You know, people are very angry with that. Garage door openers should have their own plug. It should be grounded. You know, so a 3-prong, we shouldn't be using extension cords when we do this sort of stuff. If we don't have it or we bypass the grounding, and, you know, and I get it, it's planets in alignment type stuff. I get that. But what we're looking at here is right above that dot, we got a 3 to 2 pronger, all right? So we're going in here, this whole garage door is supposed to be grounded, but now that I got a 3 to 2, and that 2 doesn't have a ground wire going up top here, my garage door opener is no longer grounded. If I have a wire come loose, an energized conductor get pinched or stripped or cut or whatever, and it energizes the case, everything that's metal that's attached to this is now energized, all right? And including the opener, the door itself, if it's a steel door, then that's going to end up bringing, you know, energizing that steel door, you know, to the outside. And that's what the previous slide was saying, that if somebody touches that and they're outside, you know, on the ground, then they're going to be electrocuted, or there's a chance that they can get electrocuted. All right. So please, you know, make sure we got that 3-prong thing in there. If you haven't, you know, gone over the electrical section yet, pay attention to the importance of grounding and the ground path, so that if we do get an energized appliance, that we are going to have a pathway to get the electricity back onto the neutral and clear that fault. All right. And these extension cords and cut cords and, you know, 2-prong ungrounded cords, all these things do everything except make sure that my door is safe should I get an electrical fault coming in here, you know. And this one here, this is just oh no, this was the extension cord, right? The metal tracks, it's a real possibility, ungrounded cord. All right. Openers that are wired directly with BX or Greenfield, they do need to have a disconnect switch or a light switch, something, so I could turn the power off. It should be marked for easy ID. A toggle switch is fine. Other issues, breaching in the firewall, damaging any sort of the structure coming around here, being able to open doors and windows. You know, most of this stuff is kind of no-brainer. You know, we're going to be able to see it. But it is kind of amazing what somebody's going to do. They want to get the door opener in there, and yeah, we don't need that. All right. This door was actually hitting the door when it was in the full open position. You know, obviously, if this door was open and we tried to bring it down, you know, that's going to damage the door. And this is one of those flimsy steel ones. There's not a lot of meat to that. All right, so it really can't work too much with it. I've gone now for about 4.5 hours. I'm going to finish up real quick with the termites here, and then I'm going to call it a morning just because I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit here. So let's go a little bit quick. Termites is not something that is in the standards of practice that we have to call for, but termites are real, and they do a lot of damage, and if left unchecked, um, it's important. They could just do a catastrophic damage to a home, and then all of a sudden it has no value whatsoever. All right. So looking for signs of them, that past repairs were done or signs of damage with it, making your clients aware of it. Let's just make them happy, tell them about it, and then if you don't know much about termites, let's get an exterminator out there. So what we're looking at here are these little holes here and here and here where those blue arrows are going. Now that could be one of two things. They could be where they did some mud jacking and popped that sidewalk up there, but it also could be for termite treatment. So they would drill a hole through the concrete, spray chemicals in that area, and then fill it back up again. All right. You see it on the inside as well. The 1/2 inch, 3/4, 1 inch mark. That's typical for the termite guys. What they do, typically it's every foot, whereas the slab raising guys, jack. What's it called? I can't think of the name right now. But when they raise the slab mud jacking, there it is. And those holes are going to typically be in the 1 inch, 1.5 inch mark that comes in there. So they got bigger pumps and bigger slurry mix that pushes into it. All right. So termite tubes or mud tunnels is something I always keep my eye out for. Even if the mud tunnels have been removed, you're going to see people just scrape them off, but you're going to see discoloration in the concrete or the wood, whatever it is. Now, typically, if the wood is wet, they're going to go through the wood. They can't get through the concrete, so they need to build a tunnel, and then they stay inside the tunnel because they need the moisture. So that tunnel keeps the humidity in there until they get from one end to another. So look for different signs of that. That's what these pictures are showing. Again, we're in the wood, and even here it's been removed, but we had something going on in there. And then I'm pretty sure, you don't get too many straight up and down like that, but they're there. It does happen. Another tube coming up behind the joist, so they'll come out of the wood too. And once you start seeing them, I actually go into probe mode, and we'll stab, everywhere to see how solid or how damaged our wood is. And you'll start seeing tracks inside the wood, and they'll just come apart quick and easy. So here the paneling. This was on top of the drywall. Here we were able to pull apart. This we were able to do with our finger, just by scratching it, and it was just starting to crumble. Now, these posts we need to figure out, and let our clients know, roughly 10%, 20%, 50%, almost all. I could get my all the way through. All right. Either way, you want to, make sure we get somebody out here, whether or not that post needs to be replaced. We want to call the problem out, let them know we don't know how severe it is, and get somebody out here to find out. So, and that's all I got for you. And as always, thank you. I know this one was a little longer than most, but you definitely have my best wishes on everything here. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn this off.